Are you tired of spending too much of your hard-earned money at the supermarket? Are you dreaming of farm fresh eggs, homegrown veggies, and homemade everything? Well, welcome to Ditch the Store, where we break free from supermarket dependence and take back control of our food and household essentials. I'm CJ, and I'm here to show you that life is too short for store-bought eggs. So let's get started. G'day everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ditch the Store. Oh God, I've got alarms going off on my phone everywhere. Should have turned that off, shouldn't I? Episode 175 today, and we are going to discuss the best $25 you'll spend in your garden. And I know you might think $25, what could I spend $25 on that's going to do me a world of good? But we're going to talk about something that I've actually sat down and done the sums on. And I'm a little bit of a numbers nerd. I like doing the sums on things to work out what actually works, the whole point of Ditch the Store for me. And I say it all the time about saving money, but it's not necessarily saving money. It's that I don't want to spend money on things that I don't think have the value that is important to me. We were joking about the other day at work in my day job, talking about, what signs there'd be if you won lotto. What would be the thing that you would do? And for me, the thing that I would do, believe it or not, and we live out in the boonies, so there's no chance of it ever happening, but I would pay somebody to come and do my grocery list. I hate grocery shopping. I really do. Do a food list and cook our dinners for us. And it's not that I hate cooking. I actually love cooking. I hate having to think what we're going to eat each night. It drives me insane. Anyway, that would be my sign that I'd won lotto, would be I'd suddenly have a personal chef cooking dinner for me and preparing food out of my beautiful garden that I would be spending all my days in. Anyway, so what we're talking about, why $25 that you're going to spend and you're going to be so beneficial and better off afterwards. We're talking about buying seedlings instead of seeds. Now, hear me out. I know I've just done an episode on saving seeds, and I think it's important to save seeds. However, there are times when life is just in the way. At the moment, I'm still recovering from my leg injury. If life is in the way and you can't go through the process of growing seedlings, buying seedlings is an option. And I don't want you to ever think that, I can't buy seedlings because I want to seed save and I want to be completely independent in that respect. Sometimes it is better to buy the seedlings. And we're going to talk about why and how. But there are some things that I would grow from seed because I just think it's nice to grow them from seed. But if you are in a hurry to get a veggie garden started, if you have run out of time, if you've got a lot on your plate, which if you're a mum and working full-time and trying to do the homesteading thing part-time, then you are going to have a lot on your plate. Even if you're not a mum, honestly, in this day and age, even people that I work with that don't have children are flat stick. So it's not even about being a mum, but let's face it, reach out to all the mums out there. Being a mum just doubles your workload. But seeds are definitely cheaper. If you're trying to be very, very frugal, seeds are definitely cheaper. But seedlings will give you a much better chance of success, particularly with some plants. So if you were spending $25 on seedlings, where would you spend it? Because I'm about to go through the list of where I would spend it, and I've actually sat down and worked out all the money. Now, one of the so out of our $25, we're buying 5 punnets of seedlings. And before you balk at that, I've checked the prices at Bunnings for those that are in Australia. Absolutely, you can get 5 punnets for $25. You'll get change out of it too. But I'm going to list 5, and out of the 5, there's only one that doesn't have a great return on investment, but it still has a return on investment. So we're going to go through all that. But before I do, I just want to let you know where we're at with the farm at the moment. So I am finally walking without both crutches on a part-time basis. So around the house, I can walk around without crutches, which is so nice after 10 months. It's been over 10 months now since I hurt my leg. And it's been awesome to be more mobile again. And to be out of the woods, to know that I'm not discussing with people the fact that I'm maybe losing my leg, which was a pretty horrific thought. We're getting into the garden prep. We've turned over our compost and we're starting to, the handy helper's starting to get the garden beds prepped for me because I can't really do it on my own at the moment. I'm looking at what seedlings I'm going to get, hence why I was looking at the price of seedlings on Bunnings, because I'm probably going to go with seedlings this year because of all the dramas I've had with my leg. I just want to make life a little bit easier for me. The weather has turned. We had such a mild winter here in southern New South Wales. I was thinking, oh my God, the weather, we didn't really have a winter. The snow season was crap. The first 2 months of the snow season, June, July, there was hardly any snow down the Snowy Mountains, which is only a couple hours drive from us. It was really, really abysmal. August has hit and oh my God, icy winds and freezing cold nights. We've had a couple of very, very deep frosts. So winter finally hit, which I actually like having a winter because it makes me kind of feel better about spring. When we go into spring, coming out of winter, I always enjoy it a lot more. I know it's kind of like that whole what you haven't missed, what you haven't lost, you don't miss. Yeah. Coming out of winter, I really enjoy the spring. And Loki, our gorgeous, gorgeous buckling, is growing up a treat. He is still on the bottle, drinking like crazy. His paddock buddy Doogie is keeping him company. He's still wearing his little jacket of a night because it's just too cold for a little boy from Rockhampton. But he is just melting our hearts. He is amazing. And what else? Oh, and Luna, the Merrimack, got out last week. Little turd, bitch. She has not escaped in a long time. She is very much true to her breed as far as Merrimers. She likes her own farm and she doesn't like to wander as much. She has a lot of space to roam on the farm, but we keep her pretty much within about a 20-acre block in the front of the farm. We don't let her go up the back because the fencing up the back is not great. It's good for cows, but not good for smaller animals. So she got out. She was gone for about 2 hours, came back covered in mud, dripping wet, and acting like she hadn't done anything wrong. The handy helper was just a little bit cross with her. Anyway, that's it for the farm update. Now, why do we still buy seedlings? So I try and save seeds where I can. If you listen to the episode last week, you would have seen that I try and save seeds where I can, and I've been learning to do that for a couple of years because obviously it goes back to that ethos of being very self-sufficient and being able to not rely on stores to buy things, which has been awesome. You know, that's the whole point of what I'm trying to do on the farm here. But I still grow things from seed, and there are things that it's just an automatic nature to grow by seed. I don't think I've ever been successful with carrots and like really successful with carrots, certainly not seedlings. From seed, I have had some success. So, but I still buy seedlings. And like I said at the beginning, it depends on where you're at in life. And I don't want you to think that you have to be so tight that you put yourself through pain in order to get the gain. It's not worth it. If your life is so busy, if you're working a full-time job, you've got children who are playing sport like mine do, so your time is not your own. You've got other chores. Maybe you've got animals like I do, so you've got chores where you have to deal with, last weekend we finished the worming program for all the goats, which took a couple of hours. We got everybody wormed, but took a couple of hours. If your time is not readily available to go and do things, then buying seedlings is a really good way to reduce the load that you already have on your plate. And this year we've really, really gone through a lot as far as how much we had on our plate. And the handy helper and I have just made decisions where we've gone, no, you know what? We are buying, there's a couple of nights a week where we've bought pre-packaged meals. I've never done that before in my life. But coming out of having a medical issue, buying prepackaged food a couple of times a week was still better than buying takeaway. And, the quality I don't think the quality was as good. Butter chicken from Costco is nowhere near as good as my butter chicken that I make from scratch. But it certainly helped us to get over that hurdle of we want to eat something at least semi-decent on the nights that we don't have time to prepare food. But we didn't want to also spend a fortune on food by, going to some fancy restaurant or anything like that. So sometimes you just have to bite the bullet and say, you know what, this is going to cost me a little bit more, but the long-term gain is going to be better for me. And that's where I'm heading with the seedlings this year. Now, if you're short on time, that can also, as in you've missed the window of planting, the sowing window, which we haven't yet here. It's August and it's way too cold to be planting anything out. So I could be starting seedlings on the veranda, which is a very much warmer and protected environment. And I probably will start some things by seed on the veranda to be planted out at a later time. But if you just say you're listening to this and it's November and you think, oh, I've missed the planting window, this is no good, I can't do this, grab some seedlings and put them in the ground. You haven't missed the planting window. Your plants may not have the same yield that they would have if they had the entire season to go through, but you'll certainly still get a lot of fruit and vegetable off them. But you might just want a head start. You might just want to go, you know what, I know that frosts are going to end at a certain time. For us, it's usually around end of September, early October, we'll get our last big frost. You might want to just be ready to go then, and you may not have enough time to get seedlings going by the time you listen to this till then. So if you want the head start, that's a good time. That's a good way to buy seedlings to get around that. Now, one thing I do want to say is, because I do bang on about the frugality thing, but sometimes the smartest gardening decision isn't always the cheapest gardening decision. Sometimes you have to weigh up what's going to be better for you in the long run. And if it's a little bit more expensive, but it saves you a lot of time, you can't buy time. You can always make more money. You can't buy time. So long as buying seedlings shouldn't be a problem if it means that you are getting your veggie garden going. That to me should be the big thing about it. Now, when I talk about $25, the best $25 you'll spend, I'm not talking about feeding your family for 6 months on $25, okay? I just want to make that very clear, that I'm not saying, oh my God, I don't want to do that clickbait shit where for $25 you can feed your family for 6 months and never have to buy anything at the store. That's not true, and that's not what I'm getting at. What I'm talking about is buying 5 punnets of seedlings that, if you look at what you pay for the same amount of produce at the supermarket over the season, you can easily return hundreds of dollars worth of value. And I'm not kidding with that. I actually did the sums and I'm going to go through them. So if you're sitting at home, get a pen and paper. If you're driving, I might try and post something on one of the socials with the outline of what I did so that you can see what's there. But I actually went through and worked it out, and the savings are over $200 worth for $25 worth of punnets. So I'm not kidding. Let's spend the $25. So my shopping trip to Bunnings, this is what it's going to entail. 1 punnet of lettuce. Now, that can be any kind of lettuce there. There's a whole bunch of different kinds. You can get cos lettuces, iceberg lettuces, all the rest of it. But 1 lettuce, and the lettuces are all about the same price at the supermarket anyway, so it shouldn't impact it too much on which one you pick. But you'll get roughly 6, sometimes you get close to 8 lettuces in a punnet, but roughly 6. 1 punnet of tomatoes. I always get the cherry tomatoes. The kids love cherry tomatoes. They will eat them as a fruit, essentially, and just pop them in their mouth. Or they'll put them in, both my kids love Greek salads, and they will make their own Greek salads and put tomatoes in. Handy Helper can't eat tomatoes. He has a gout issue that reacts only to tomatoes. Tomatoes and the artificial sweetener in Pepsi Max. Go figure. They're the only 2 things that he reacts to. But he can't have tomatoes. So when we make Greek salad, we do it without the tomatoes. He has his Greek salad, and then the kids and I put our cherry tomatoes onto our salad separately on our plate. Spring onions, 1 punnet of spring onions. Now, we use a lot of onions in our house, but we also use a lot of spring onions. And I love throwing a handful of chopped up spring onions into meat dishes that I'm making. I just think it adds a little extra oomph to it. Baby spinach. Now, baby spinach is the only one out of the 5 that doesn't make a great return, but we do love baby spinach more so than we love your traditional English spinach. So that's the one that I went with. And 1 punnet of parsley. Parsley is probably the most common herb that we use in our family. We use basil as well. I am a massive coriander fan. Nobody else in the family really loves it. OJ will eat it, and he says it tastes like nothing to him. But MJ and the handy helper both balk at it and say it tastes like soap. It might be the other way around. It might be OJ that thinks it tastes like soap. But anyway, so that's $25, okay? And most of those punnets worked out to be $4.85 each. There was one punnet that was a little less than that, but I'll go through my little list. So that $25, those 5 punnets worth, and it comes in at $24 something, can keep producing food for you for a couple of months. Here's the maths on it. So if you've got a pen, you can write this down. Lettuce punnet, $4.85. I picked an iceberg lettuce because you seem to get more out of it. But they're cheaper in the shops than the organic, like cos and butter lettuce and all that kind of stuff. 6 seedlings. So I averaged it as 6 seedlings for that one. Harvesting the whole head or picking leaves as you need them. Now, with icebergs, it doesn't really work to pick leaves as you need them. But with cos and things like that, you can just pick the outer leaves and leave the plant growing. So if you're a smaller family and you don't need to pick the whole lettuce, don't pick the whole lettuce. Leave it growing and then you'll have fresh lettuce whenever you want it. But you'll get around 6 lettuces out of that. Approximate value, okay? So for the $4.85, you're going to get around 6 lettuces, which the iceberg lettuces that I was working it out on worked out to be $3.50 each from the store. That was working prices out from Woolies and Coles. I averaged it out. For those that are in Australia, that's our normal supermarket. It's a bit like your Walmart. I wouldn't say it's like your, what's the really fancy organic food shop over in the States, Walgreens or something. It's not like that. So Woolies and Coles are our base level supermarkets. $3.50 a lettuce. So 6 lettuces is $21. So a $4.85 punnet gets you $21 worth of lettuce. Now, yes, I know you have to factor in your effort growing it and all the rest of it, but I would hope that if you're listening to this podcast, that is something that you want to do anyway and you enjoy doing and you have the ability to do. So next on the list is tomatoes, $4.85 again for a punnet. And that was cherry tomatoes I looked at. There was 6 seedlings. They actually looked like in the picture because I haven't been into the Bunnings store yet because it's too cold here to grow them yet. 6 seedlings, actually looked like there was about 8 seedlings in there. So one healthy plant can produce kilos of tomatoes. And it's important that you look after your tomato plants. They do like good nutrient soil, so make sure your soil's up to scratch. And it's a good idea to either have them up a trellis or have them on some kind of system where you can hold them up because they get really heavy. And pick off those little secondary shoots that come out because they don't grow any fruit anyway. And it just makes the plant have to work harder to grow them. But they're probably one of the best returns in the whole garden, okay? And I'm not shitting you when I say this. Even if you just grow tomatoes, you're going to be in front. So cherry tomatoes currently are $29.50 a kilo. I know that's really freaky when you think about it, but because they sell cherry tomatoes in those 200 gram and 350 gram punnets, you never really think about the price. You just think, oh, it's just $5 or whatever it is for a punnet of tomatoes. But that punnet is only 200 grams. So $5 for a 200 gram punnet is insane. But the average price on both supermarkets was $29.50 a kilo for cherry tomatoes. Now, an average plant will yield, it's anywhere between 3 and 8 kilograms is a good yield. So I decided to cut it in the middle and go 5. So working it out as 5 kilos per plant for a $4.85 for the punnet, 6 plants, I think I worked out. So 5 kilos. Oh, I think I worked this out wrong. Oh my God, I just realized. I think I worked it out wrong. I don't. I think I worked it out. Those 3 to 8 kilos for all of the plants, but 5 kilos of cherry tomatoes is $147.50 if you bought them at the supermarket. It's insane. I'll have to redo those figures and just see if I was right with that. But $147 worth of cherry tomatoes at $29.50 a kilo because they're insanely expensive in Australia at the moment. Spring onions. Now, spring onions aren't super dear, and I worked this out per bunch rather than per kilo because it made sense. That's how you buy it anyway. With spring onions, you can just harvest them as needed. So you don't need to go crazy and pull a whole bunch out in one go if you don't need a whole bunch. And let's face it, how many times have you bought a bunch of spring onions only to use maybe half, maybe if you're lucky 2/3, and then you go back to grab the last couple of stalks and they're completely wilted and no good for anything. So it's probably better to grow them at home and then only use what you need. So I also found a little thing that said if you leave the roots in, there's a lot of varieties that will continue to grow. So you could just chop off the bits that you need from the outer and the top. But it saves buying bunch after bunch and having them go bad. A typical punnet has 4 to 8 cells or clumps worth of spring onions that hold roughly 8 to 20 individual stems or small clusters. So I even that up to say if you get 12 bunches out of your punnet, 12 bunches, a bunch currently at the supermarket is $3 a bunch. So 12 bunches times $3, $36 for a $4.85 punnet. Do you see where I'm going with this? It's so much cheaper. And like I say, less wasteful too. The chance of you having spring onions sitting in the fridge going bad and wilted is so much less likely if you're only taking out what you need to cook with that particular day. Baby spinach. Now, baby spinach was the only one that didn't really come in as huge winner chicken dinner kind of thing. You still save money. You're still going to be better off. And the thing is that with baby spinach, you can just take the leaves that you need and then let it go, and hopefully you'll keep growing kind of thing. So this figure may not be super, super accurate. So don't hold me to it. But again, only a $4.85 punnet. You just pick the outside leaves as you need it and it will keep producing for weeks. It's much better than buying bags and having the bags sit in the fridge and go manky and gross in the bottom of the plastic bag, which is when we've bought baby spinach from the shop, that's exactly what happens to it. The thing is with organic spinach, baby spinach is so much nicer to eat to start with because it tastes better, but you only have to take out what you are going to use. Like I say, go out and pick a handful and bring it in and you're not got it sitting in the fridge going bad. I also never thought about it, but it's actually better for the fridge not to have all those things in it that are going bad because you don't have to clean them out later. I mean, the chooks will hate you because they won't get all the scraps, but you just got to weigh up the better things sometimes. Excuse me. So they're a low yield punnet and you only get about 200 grams per punnet. 200 grams at the moment. Baby spinach is selling for $49 a kilo in Australia. I know that's insane. But like I say, because you only buy like 100-gram bags sometimes, you don't really look at it. You think, $4.90. Yeah, that's okay for a bag. And because it's only 100 grams, if you're buying a kilo, it'd be $49. That would freak me out. So that's probably a good thing why they sell it in smaller bags like that. So 200 grams at $49 a kilo is $9.80. So you're only doubling your money there. You're not doing those astronomical figures like you were with the tomatoes, but you're still better off and in front. And like I say, you've not got them going off and bad in the bottom of the fridge. You're only pulling them out when you want to cook with them or use them. So it's a win-win in that sense. Parsley. Parsley was the cheaper one, $4.68 a punnet. And out of that, you'll probably get between 6 to 12 standard kind of groupings because when they put the seeds in the punnets, they can never get just one seed in kind of thing. So it's not like it's going to be 6 clusters. It's going to be more than 6 clusters because there's always, plants growing together. So it's really important when you get those punnets to separate them out because if you separate them out, you'll end up with more clusters than what you would if you just chucked them in the ground together. So The good thing about parsley is it will keep producing for months, and you only have to snip off what you need. You don't need to keep buying, keep snipping huge cluster bunches and bring them inside and then not using them and having them go bad in the fridge. So a yield for your punnet is about 6 to 12 standard bunches per punnet. So I cut that down the middle. If you harvest smartly, like just trimming the outside leaves, you'll get a lot more out of it. But I averaged that out to nine bunches. So I said I'll get 9 bunches of parsley. A bunch of parsley at the moment at the supermarket is $4.50, and 9 by $4.50 is $40.50, which is just insane that we probably spend that kind of money on our parsley. And I have got no herbs growing at the moment. I've got mint. I've got wild mint growing up the back, but that's it. That's all I've got growing. So that's what I am going to do this year. That's what I'm aiming for. Now, my total cost for the 5 punnets came in at $24.08, which, as I said, you're going to get change out of $25 for it, which I think is a really good deal. Those plants, you may not be able to seed save off those plants, but like I said at the beginning, if this is about you just getting stuff into the garden, then don't stress about what's going to happen at the other end, whether you're going to seed save and things like that. Don't stress about that. Just get started. That's probably more important than anything else. And if you find that, midway through the season you're growing and you're like, oh, I need more, maybe then try and do some seeds, like get some heritage seeds and try and grow from seed. And then you'll be able to seed save off those later producing plants. But the total, I'm very excited about this. I sat down and added it all up. So your total for $24.08 worth of punnets gets you $254.80 worth of groceries out of the ground in your backyard. And those plants aren't going to take up a lot of space. You could be growing your baby spinach underneath your tomatoes without a problem. Lettuces could be growing in between baby spinach or growing in between spring onion. What was my other one that I was growing? I've forgotten already. That's terrible. Baby spinach, spring onions, tomatoes, and lettuce, and parsley. Parsley grow around the edge of your garden bed. You wouldn't even need to go past either one big-sized garden bed or 2 medium-sized garden beds. You could absolutely have it all growing in that. So $25, less than $25 gets you $254.80. So say $255. Worth of produce out of your garden. I think that's awesome. Now, why this is going to work. This is really important. Don't buy crops. So whatever 5 you pick, that's the 5 I picked because I know that we will use them. Whatever crops you buy, whatever seedlings you go for, don't buy shit you don't eat. I know that sounds really basic, but the number of times I've heard of people growing like aubergines, or eggplants, or artichokes. I got given an artichoke plant from a friend of mine once that I'd helped out with her beehive, and I'm like, we don't even eat artichokes. I don't mind artichoke hearts, but to be honest, I don't think I've ever grown them, and I would harvesting them. I feel like you're peeling all these leaves off just to get this tiny little artichoke heart at the end. It's a lot of work for not much gain. Plant the things that you know your family are going to love and eat. Like I say, instead of normal tomatoes, because the handy helper doesn't eat them anyway, cherry tomatoes. If I was canning this year, and that would be lovely to be canning this year, I'd be looking at tomatoes that are going to be suitable for canning, because being able to grow huge, big tomatoes that you can then cook down, can, and use for tomato sauce would be awesome. What you're trying to do is replace repeated supermarket purchases, and that's why the lettuce and baby spinach and spring onions and parsley, that's why those 4 work so well, because you can go out and just snip a little bit off for what you need for the meal that you're preparing that night, but you don't have to take a huge bunch out of the garden, and it means that you're not ducking out to the supermarket to get something that's wilted within 3 or 4 days. And certainly the stuff we get from the supermarket, we don't know how old that is or how long it's been out of the ground. So when it kind of falls over within 4 days, it doesn't really surprise me because, it could have been sitting in a cold storage for 2 months. We don't know. And I think that there's savings there that we don't talk about that are not monetary savings, but the savings on time and effort. And you might say, yeah, but I'm putting time and effort into making my garden. But I'd rather be out doing the time and effort in my garden than doing time and effort going to the supermarket and buying stuff and having to cart it home and then put it into the fridge and that kind of thing. Like, honestly, I'd rather just be able to walk out to my garden and clip something off that I need and bring it in. And like I said, at the beginning I said it, and I'm sure everybody thought, oh, she's full of shit. That's not going to work. Like, how's $25 going to make a couple of $100 worth of groceries? But you can keep feeding your family for months because cherry tomatoes don't all ripen at the same time. The baby spinach doesn't all ripen at the same time. If you're taking like branches off the edge of the parsley, it's, going to keep growing in the middle, and you're going to end up being able to go back to it over a period of months and keep taking from that plant. So it's a win long-term as well. Now, a few things that you do need to remember, and obviously I haven't factored these into the cost factor of everything, but they still need water. If you live in an area where you get a decent rainfall level, then fine. Otherwise, you're going to have to water them. Now, when we're in bad drought here, which we have only had 1 year of really, really poor weather as far as droughts, I hand water with a watering can because then I can really concentrate the water just to the plants where I want them. But we've been really lucky here. We've had a couple of years of actually pretty good rainfall and not had a problem with our garden. Healthy soil, as I've talked about previously, you need to have healthy soil. So now in August is the time to be getting that soil health up to scratch, digging your compost in. If you are going to use some artificial fertilizer, and one of my followers on Mojo Homestead, Faye, posted something, and she said she makes a mix of a worm tea, compost, and artificial fertilizer that she buys from the store. She makes a mix of that to put into the soil, which I think is a really smart way of doing it. If you want to make sure that your soil is getting everything nutrient-wise that it needs to, having that small amount of artificial fertilizer going in is probably not a bad idea, especially if you're putting in good quality compost that you've made yourself. And she's using worm tea as well, or a compost tea she makes up. And I can't remember which it was, but look, what a great mix to having all those three to get the soil health really, really, really good. So compost we've talked about, you've got to dig that into the soil. Sunlight, they need sunlight. So make sure that your garden bed is in an area where it's going to get a good amount of sunlight during the day. Coming into spring and summer for us here in Australia, just about everywhere gets good sunlight. The main thing is don't plant it under a tree or, on the cold side of a house where there's just no sunlight getting to it. Plants do not like having no sunlight. But having the seedlings, this is the really important bit if you're a beginner or if you're like me and you're not a green thumb naturally and you really have to work at it, having seedlings gives you a massive head start. It's going to put you in a situation where you're going to walk out into your garden and go, wow, I've already got plants growing, instead of kind of looking and going, shit, the seed's going to come up. Are they going to be strong enough? Are they going to get hit by frost? Now, don't put your seed. That's something I haven't mentioned. I don't even think I've got to here on my list. Don't put your seeds out before your last frost. Or if you do, make sure you've got a cover to go over them. So any night where it's going to be minus, you want to cover your seedlings. Most seedlings really can't handle the frozen ground and frozen temperatures. But if you've got something to cover them over with, then they will survive, a day of frost or 2 days of frost without any problems. But if you are having a particularly cold spell, make sure you've got something to cover them with, and make sure you've got mulch around the base of them to keep the soil temperature more even. Now, I have had lots of wins and lots of losses with seedlings. Planting them too close is always something that I do badly. Pay attention to what it says on the back of there'll be a little stick in the seedling container that will tell you how far apart to plant them, how far down to plant them. In most cases, it's pretty obvious. You want to make sure the soil's covering all of the root system. When you break them apart, just be very gentle. Seedlings are fragile. And that's, you can kind of damage them to the point where they don't grow. So be very gentle pulling them apart. Make sure you've got a hole ready for them to go into. Don't pull them apart until you are ready to plant them. If the roots dry out, they won't survive. Get them into the ground, mulch them around the base to keep that temperature of the soil really well, but wet them and maybe give them a douse of fertilizer, liquid fertilizer like sea salt, which I don't even consider sea salt to be artificial fertilizer because it's made from seaweed, so it's organic anyway. Give them a good dose of fertilizer in that respect, mulch and let them sit, and then it's just time and wait. Now, if you have failures, don't panic. Just honestly, if the plant looks like it's not doing well, pull it out and maybe try putting your own seed in there to see if you get one grow. Having a staggered growth is always a good thing when it comes to plants anyway. But wait, just wait. Don't rip it straight out of the ground as soon as it looks like it's dying. Just give it a couple more days, because sometimes I've had ones that look like they're dead and then all of a sudden they just start sprouting and they come back from nowhere. So this week, that's pretty much it for the seedlings thing. But I wanted to go through what is my this week's worth spending money on. So compost. If you do not have compost, if you have not been able to make compost yourself over the last year or so, or if you live in a rental property or in a house block where you just don't have the ability to have a compost pile without disturbing your neighbours, although most neighbours should be understanding, but that's just me. I would be very understanding if I looked over the fence and saw somebody's compost pile. But some people don't like the smell. I think it's a nice smell. Rather than trying to grow things in soil that is not healthy, I would encourage you to spend the money on some quality compost. And you don't have to go overboard. You don't have to go crazy with the amount that you buy. But it is worth buying it if you don't have it or if you haven't been able to make any. Putting plants into low quality soil is never going to get you the yields that I talked about earlier. It would be much better to have the better quality soil to get those kind of yields if that's what you're after. And if you're going to all the hassle to buy a seedling and grow a plant, you want the best yield. I do. And this is where my frugality comes out. If I'm putting something in the ground, I'm going to spend time watering it and caring for it. I want it to give me back everything that I expect it to give me back. And the soil, the thing is that once you've mixed that compost into the soil and got healthy soil, it will promote the soil staying healthy. So long term, it's a win-win as well. And this week's store swap. So it's not necessarily this week, but it's what we're aiming for over the coming weeks. And for me, like I said, the tomatoes, it's a bit different because I think you get the value out of it. And I mean, certainly they have the best yield out of all of them. But the ones that bug me are the ones that I buy a bag of or I buy a bunch of and it sits in the fridge and it goes off and doesn't get used. And as a grown-up human, I feel like it's such a win when I use the bottom of a container, the end of a packet, all of a bunch, and there's no waste. I love it when there's no waste. The chooks hate me, but I love it when there's no waste. So this week's store swap is salad greens and fresh herbs. So instead of buying, just pick one of these and try and aim for it. I'm going to go for parsley first up because that's the one I'm going to focus on first, is lettuce, baby spinach, spring onions, or parsley. And so for me, it's going to be parsley. Let me know what your one out of those four is and what you think you'd try and grow and harvest rather than having to go back to the supermarket for, because that will obviously, be a win. This week's challenge. So start planning now for its first week of August when I'm recording this. Start planning now for September. So I want you to think out your 5 punnets. Have a look on the Bunnings website and see how much they cost for the 5 that you're interested in. You might want zucchinis or cucumbers or something like that, and I'm sure that you'll get them around that same price anyway. So get a list going of what 5 you're going to buy and start working out where you're going to buy it. So start prepping the area that it's going to go into. If you're going to need frames for things like cucumbers or tomatoes, start thinking about those frames now so that you can get it all prepped so it's ready to go as soon as you put the plants in. And every time you think about what it's costing you, add that tally on, because what I want you to do is just try and think about it at the end of summer. how much fruit or vegetable you've got off the plant and how much it costs you to have those plants growing. And that includes the frame and that includes the time that you've put in. I think you'll be surprised you'll still come out in front, even like maybe not with things like baby spinach, but definitely with all the other things, you'll come out in front and you'll be surprised. It definitely adds up much quicker because you'll be saving what you didn't have to spend at the supermarket. Now, if you haven't already, don't forget to go to www.ditchthestore.com/DTS score and do the quiz to find out how good you are at ditching the store already. It's a free quiz. Honestly, I know people say free quizzes all the time. Yes, I am asking for your email address, but it's a free quiz. Go there and see how much your percentage score is and where you rate as far as how good you're doing. I think if it makes you feel any better, at the moment, answering very honestly, I was sitting around a 70-something, 70%, might have been 78, around that, which is not great for me. I mean, I'm promoting Ditch the Store and I still have to buy a lot of things. But I know that I'm in that time of life at the moment where with my leg being injured, it's made it really hard for me to grow a lot of things. And I'm hoping that by the end of summer, that score result will have changed completely. But go and have a look at that quiz and do it and see what you come up with and let me know. Post something on social media and link me in. I would love to be linked in to know what your score was. Anyway, that is it for this week. I'm going to go and make myself a cup of tea and something to eat and go and organise kids and things like that. And I will speak to you all next week when we are talking about, I think we're talking about really prepping for spring. I think that's what, I couldn't even remember. But I'm pretty sure we're talking about what we're prepping for spring. But that is it for today's episode. Thank you all, and I'll talk to you all next week. Bye for now. Well, that's it for today's episode of Ditch the Store. If you're loving the journey to self-sufficiency, be sure to subscribe. You can also leave a review for us or share this episode with a friend who's ready to break up with their supermarket. If you've got questions or success stories, we'd love to hear about them on the socials. You can also find me at www.mojohomestead.net. Until next time, keep raising, growing and making. And remember, life's too short for store-bought eggs.